It all started innocently enough. We met at a mutual friends gathering, one of those casual get-togethers where no one expects anything extraordinary to happen. Her name was Anna, a beautiful woman with a warm smile and a soft, kind demeanor. I noticed her the moment she walked in, but I quickly dismissed the thought. After all, she was married. I saw the ring on her finger, and I knew the boundaries that came with it. We were introduced, exchanged pleasantries, and that was supposed to be it. But as the evening wore on, we found ourselves gravitating towards each other. We talked about everything: work, life, dreams, and regrets. There was something about her that felt so familiar, so comforting, like we had known each other for years. As the night drew to a close, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unspoken between us, something that neither of us dared to acknowledge. I told myself it was just a fleeting connection, that it would fade with time. But it didn't. Days turned into weeks, and Anna and I started seeing more of each other. It began with casual coffee meetups, where we would chat about life, share laughs, and simply enjoy each other's company. There was nothing inappropriate at first, but as we grew closer, the lines between friendship and something more began to blur. I knew she was married. She spoke of her husband, Tom, often enough, a good man who loved her dearly. But there was a sadness in her eyes whenever she mentioned him, a hint of something that was missing from their relationship. I never asked, and she never offered to explain. It was an unspoken understanding between us. One evening, after a particularly long and intimate conversation, we found ourselves standing outside the cafe, the night air cool and crisp. There was a pause, a silence that hung between us, thick with unspoken words. I looked into her eyes and saw the same longing, the same conflict that I felt deep within myself. Before I knew what was happening, we were kissing. It was soft at first, hesitant, as if we were both testing the boundaries. But then it deepened, becoming something more urgent, more desperate. In that moment, the world around us faded away, and there was only the two of us, lost in a whirlwind of emotions. When we finally pulled away, we were both breathless, the reality of what we had just done crashing down on us. I shouldn't have done that, Anna whispered, her voice trembling. We shouldn't have, I agreed, but even as I said the words, I knew I didn't mean them. There was no going back now. We had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. What followed was a whirlwind of passion and secrecy. Anna and I became entangled in a love affair that was as intense as it was forbidden. We met in hidden corners of the city, in hotel rooms where we could be alone, far away from the prying eyes of the world. Our time together was stolen, brief moments of intimacy that we both knew couldn't last. We would make love with a desperation that spoke of the limited time we had, knowing that each encounter could be our last. And yet, despite the guilt that gnawed at us both, we couldn't stay away from each other. Anna confided in me about her marriage, about how things had changed between her and Tom. They had grown distant, the spark that once ignited their love now dimmed by the monotony of daily life. She spoke of how she felt invisible, how she longed to feel alive again, to be seen and desired. And I saw her. I desired her. But I also knew that what we were doing was wrong. The guilt weighed heavily on me, but the thought of losing her was unbearable. I knew I was living in a fantasy, a temporary escape from reality, but I couldn't bring myself to end it. But like all forbidden affairs, ours couldn't last forever. The secrecy, the lies, it all started to take its toll. Anna became more withdrawn, the weight of what we were doing pressing down on her like a vice. She spoke less of Tom and more about how torn she felt, how guilty she was for betraying him, for betraying herself. One day, as we lay in each other's arms in a cheap hotel room, Anna turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, her voice broken. "I love you, but I can't keep lying to him, to myself. This has to end." My heart shattered at her words, but deep down, I knew she was right. Our affair had been built on deception, on borrowed time that had finally run out. There was no future for us, no happy ending. We were living in a world of illusions, and the reality was that we were tearing ourselves apart. "I understand," I said, my voice barely audible. "I don't want to lose you, but I don't want to hurt you either. If ending this is what you need, then I'll respect that." We held each other for the last time, our tears mingling as we said our goodbyes. There were no promises to stay in touch, no plans to meet again. We both knew that the best thing we could do was to walk away and try to rebuild our lives. In the weeks that followed, I felt like a ghost, moving through life without truly living. The emptiness inside me was overwhelming, the pain of losing Anna almost too much to bear. I thought of her constantly, wondering how she was, if she was able to repair the damage that our affair had caused. But I knew I couldn't reach out to her. I had to let her go, to give her the space she needed to heal and to find her way back to herself. I never heard from Anna again. She disappeared from my life as suddenly as she had entered it, leaving behind only memories of a love that was never meant to be. I heard through mutual friends that she and Tom had decided to work on their marriage, to try and rebuild what had been broken. I hoped, for her sake, that they would succeed. As for me, I tried to move on, but the shadow of our affair lingered, a constant reminder of the choices I had made and the consequences that followed. I learned to live with the pain, to carry the weight of my actions, knowing that I had no one to blame but myself. Years later, as I look back on that time in my life, I realized that my love for Anna, as real and intense as it was born out of a deep sense of loneliness and longing. We were two people, searching for something to fill the void in our lives, and in each other, we found a temporary escape. But love built on lies and deceit can never truly last. It is fragile, fleeting, and ultimately destructive. I learned that the hard way, and it's a lesson that I carry with me to this day. In the end, my affair with Anna was a chapter in my life that taught me the importance of honesty, integrity, and the consequences of our choices. It was a painful lesson, but one that has shaped me into the person I am today. And though I will always carry the memory of our time together, I know that it is a past that I must leave behind as I continue to move forward, seeking a love that is true, honest, and free of the shadows of deceit. The days turned into months, and the initial pain of losing Anna began to dull, but it never fully disappeared. I found myself haunted by memories of our time together, of the way she laughed, the softness of her touch, the intensity of our stolen moments. Each memory was like a ghost, lingering at the edges of my consciousness, refusing to be forgotten. I tried to immerse myself in work, throwing myself into projects and deadlines in an attempt to distract myself from the void Anna had left behind. But no matter how busy I kept myself, there were always quiet moments, late at night, in the early hours of the morning, when the memories would creep back in, filling me with a mix of longing and regret. I often wondered how Anna was doing. Was she happy? Had she found peace in her decision to stay with Tom? I had no way of knowing, and that uncertainty gnawed at me. Part of me wanted to reach out, to hear her voice again, even if only to know that she was okay. But I knew that doing so would only reopen old wounds, and I couldn't bear to cause her any more pain. I avoided places where we had spent time together, the cafes, the parks, even the streets that led to the hotel where we used to meet. Each location was a reminder of what we had shared and of the bitter reality that it was over. I knew that moving on meant letting go of these places, these memories, but it was easier said than done. One rainy afternoon, I found myself walking aimlessly through the city, lost in thought. The streets were slick with rain, the sky a muted gray that mirrored my mood. As I rounded a corner, I stopped abruptly, my breath catching in my throat. There, standing under the awning of a small bookshop, was Anna. She was alone, her hair slightly damp from the rain, and she looked just as beautiful as I remembered. For a moment, I considered turning around and walking away, but something in me wouldn't allow it. Before I knew what I was doing, I was walking towards her. She saw me before I reached her, her eyes widening in surprise. There was a brief moment of hesitation, and then she smiled, a small, sad smile that told me everything I needed to know. "Hello," she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth that sent a pang through my chest. "Hi," I replied, unsure of what to say next. There was so much I wanted to ask, so much I wanted to tell her, but the words seemed to stick in my throat. We stood there for a moment, the rain pattering softly around us, the world seeming to fade away. It was just the two of us, standing together again after so much time apart, and yet everything had changed. "How have you been?" I finally asked, my voice tentative. "I've been okay," Anna replied, her eyes searching mine. "It's been difficult, but Tom and I are working through it. We're trying to rebuild what we lost." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions, relief that she was finding her way, and a deep, aching sadness that I was no longer part of her life. "I'm glad to hear that," I said, forcing a smile. "What about you?" she asked, her voice gentle. "How are you?" "I'm managing," I said, shrugging slightly. "It's been tough, but I'm trying to move forward." Anna nodded, her expression softening. "I'm sorry for everything," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "For the pain we caused each other, for the way things ended." "I'm sorry too," I replied, my throat tightening with emotion. "I never wanted to hurt you, Anna. I don't know. I got lost in it all." She reached out and touched my arm, a gesture that was both comforting and heartbreaking. "We both did," she said. "But it's in the past now. We have to let it go." I nodded, knowing she was right, but feeling the weight of those words pressing down on me. Letting go was easier said than done, especially when the memories still felt so vivid, so close. We stood there for a few more moments, neither of us wanting to be the first to walk away. Finally, Anna sighed and stepped back. "I should go," she said, her voice tinged with regret. "Tom's waiting for me." "Of course," I replied, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. "Take care, Anna." "You too," she said, giving me one last, lingering look before turning and walking away. I watched her go, my heart heavy with the finality of it all. This was the closure I had been searching for, and yet it didn't bring the relief I had hoped for. Instead, it left me feeling more alone than ever. After that chance encounter with Anna, I knew that it was time to truly let go. Holding onto the memories, the what-ifs, and the regrets was only keeping me trapped in a cycle of pain. I needed to find a way to move on, to find peace within myself. I decided to leave the city. It was a difficult decision, but one that I knew was necessary. Every street, every corner, every cafe reminded me of Anna, of what we had shared and lost. I needed a fresh start, a new beginning in a place where I could rebuild my life without the constant reminders of my past. I found a job in a different city, far enough away that the memories couldn't follow me. I packed my belongings, said goodbye to the few friends I had, and left the city that had been both my home and my prison. In the new city, I threw myself into my work, trying to create a life that was separate from the one I had left behind. It wasn't easy. There were days when the loneliness threatened to overwhelm me, when the memories of Anna would creep back in uninvited. But I knew that this was the only way forward. I made new friends, explored new places, and slowly began to build a life that was mine alone. It was a slow process, but with each passing day, the pain lessened, the memories faded, and I found myself thinking of Anna less and less. Years passed, and the wounds that had once been so raw began to heal. I still thought of Anna from time to time, but the sharp pang of loss had dulled into a distant ache, a reminder of a chapter in my life that had long since closed. I had grown, changed, and learned so much from the experience. The affair had taught me about the complexities of love, the dangers of giving in to temptation, and the importance of integrity and honesty in relationships. It had been a painful lesson, but one that had shaped me into the person I was today. I had come to accept that Anna was a part of my past, a part of my journey, but not my future. I had found peace in knowing that we had both moved on, that we had both found our way in the world, even if it wasn't together. As I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sun set over the horizon, I felt a sense of contentment that had eluded me for so long. I had finally found the closure I had been searching for, the acceptance that allowed me to truly let go. And in that moment, I knew that I was ready to move forward, to embrace whatever the future held with an open heart and a clear mind. Life continued, as it always does. I met someone new, someone who brought light and joy into my life in a way I hadn't thought possible after everything that had happened. It was different from what I had shared with Anna, simpler, more grounded, and built on a foundation of trust and honesty. I told her about my past, about Anna and the affair that had once consumed me. She listened without judgment, offering understanding and compassion. It was a conversation that brought me a sense of closure, a final letting go of the ghosts that had haunted me for so long. In the end, I realized that my love for Anna, as intense and real as it had been, was a chapter in my life that had shaped me but did not define me. It was a part of my past that had taught me valuable lessons, lessons that I would carry with me into the future. As I walked hand in hand with the woman who now held my heart, I knew that I had finally moved on. The shadows of the past had lifted, and I was ready to embrace the light of a new beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace.